Hello everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here with breaking news. A magnitude 7.7 earthquake has struck Indonesia off the coast at shallow depth, and this did generate a tsunami. Thankfully, this is a fairly low population part of Indonesia, but this magnitude 7.7 is the second largest earthquake of 2026. And it is directly antipodal to what has been happening in Venezuela and Colombia. So that was a forecast that I issued back on the 24th of June when the doublet struck Venezuela, that we could be seeing some reciprocal antipodal activity at similar magnitudes directly for this region or in the nearby area, because often they're not exactly on the opposite side. There's a little bit of deviation. Well, that's what we got. About 7 weeks later, we've now had the earthquake, very close in time geologically, magnitude 7.7 as we can see here, and there's been aftershocks. So we have a 5.9, 5.6, 6.1. So we're just getting started with this earthquake swarm. This is there's going to be more earthquakes than this, but you'd have to go to the local seismic network to get the magnitude 4s, 3s, and 2s. But this was a big earthquake. And thankfully, it was not closer to a major population center, or else it could have been really bad. Though we are going to examine like the coverage that is being posted to X, Twitter. I'm sure there's some videos there. You can't have a magnitude 7.7 and not have it be a big earthquake for some people, unless it's in the middle of the ocean or something. Because there are people that live here, they would have felt it, and the tsunami would have been pretty significant, being only 10 kilometers down, as you can see, and right off the coast. So there has been a tsunami that has been basically picked up by the Indonesian authorities. Here we see their webpage, their Indonesia Tsunami Early Warning System. A lot of this is in the local language, so that kind of makes it a little difficult here, but we'll do our best. But yeah, they are basically saying, hey, tsunami warning, and they're really showing it for this region here. So this main island, but going outwards. You really need like a magnitude 8 plus earthquake, like 8.5, like really talking about like mid-magnitude 8 for tsunami to really be a big deal globally. Also depends on where it is. This area right here is basically surrounded on all sides by these islands. So that is a good location, you could say, for there being an earthquake and the tsunami, let's say, not hitting Hawaii or like South America, right? Whereas Japan, because it's right there on the Pacific, it can spread out all the way and hit, Cascadia, California, Mexico, South America, Hawaii. So it can get problematic in some locations. Of course, a tsunami hitting these islands is problematic for all the wonderful, beautiful people living there. And there's like 250 million plus people living in Indonesia. It's a huge country. People don't realize just how big and populous and diverse of a country Indonesia is. Okay, update: early warning tsunami threat by the magnitude 7.7 earthquake has been detected, and it's at 0.14 meters, 0.3 meters. These are different locations. 0.54 meters, 0.17. So all of these are coming in at less than 1 meter. We do have the highest here on day at 0.94 meters. So that's a pretty significant tsunami. Like a 1 meter tsunami, I mean, it's not like 5 meters or something. That'd be really bad. But even a 1 meter tsunami, the dynamics of how tsunamis work is that they just continue to push energy in. It's not just one wave and that's it. It's this continuous push of water. And so 1 meter, 3+ feet, right? Pushing continuously for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour can really overwhelm areas that are just right there at sea level. And a lot of these islands, that's exactly what it is. You have the beach and it goes up maybe a foot before then you have the little tiki bar and everything else. So thankfully though, it looks like the tsunami is not the biggest in general, and only one location here having it get close to 1 meter. The others are quite a bit smaller. I mean, it was 0.14 meters. That starts to not become a problem. So looks like the tsunami is not the biggest deal, but the overall trend of seismicity that we're seeing right now is a pretty big deal. Right now we're at extreme levels for today. As we can see with our global seismic activity level, this is provided by Volcano Discovery, and we see our most recent magnitude 7.7 there, Indonesia, on the 14th of August Universal Time. Here is our 7.4 that struck Colombia, our 7.3 that struck Mexico. Here we have our doublet that struck Venezuela, 7.2 and 7.5. And of course, don't forget the magnitude 7.1 that struck, magnitude 7.2 that struck Japan. Here is where we had the magnitude 7.1 strike Japan. USGS has it as a 6.8, but that was a 7.1 according to the Japanese. And here we have the 7.8 that struck the Philippines. So it's been very active earthquake-wise. And I was going to come on today already and do a live stream for you about what was happening. And I have some new thoughts and ideas and everything, and we'll probably get into that. But now I need to be reporting on this 7.7. But just what we see in general is that when this sort of earthquake activity, just like what we call a seismic burst, a global seismic burst, when you really just start to get Earth being battered by earthquakes back to back to back, it just effectively kind of begets there to be more activity. And it'll take a while for that to die down. Eventually it dies down. You have quiet periods, you have lulls, and then you have these really active periods. It's not homogeneous. Earthquake activity is not just, okay, every single 2 weeks we expect exactly this because that's the average distribution. It's not homogeneous across time. You get these clusters and you get these quiet periods, and we are right now in one of those clusters. And what's so concerning about this is the effectively the back and forth to it. So here we have a web app developed by a friend of mine on X. He's still working on it, so I'm not going to put the link to this, but eventually I will have the link available for you guys, okay? But here we're looking at earthquakes for the past week, okay? So past week, magnitude 5 plus, and we're using our source as the USGS, all right? And so let us look here at our Colombia earthquake. I think I'm ready set to it, but we'll go to this moment's behind me, the little option. So this is the exact moment of the Colombia earthquake, okay? And we see that we have our sun and moon position. So getting close to a new moon, which was the total solar eclipse on the 12th. Remember that? That was just 2 days ago. You know, that was over Spain. In fact, Spain just had a magnitude 5.2 earthquake. So we'll report on that as well. But that just occurred in the past like 20 minutes. So here we see the lunar position close to a new moon, right in that waning crescent phase. All right, so very close to new moon. Now let's go over to our earthquake here in Indonesia, okay? And we will see here our 7.7 right there, okay? And we'll go to this moment exactly. Okay, so there it is. Look at our sun-moon position. Now you can see that the moon has moved to the other side, and it's basically approximately the exact same angle from the other side, right? So this is still in that new moon phase, effectively. Total solar eclipse on the 12th, and you have a big magnitude 7.4 strike Colombia 2 days before, and a big magnitude 7.7 strike 2 days afterwards. And yeah, so when you click that quake, that's what resets this basically. So the thing is, these are also antipodal to one another. So let's give that a look really quick. Show you again. Let's refresh this. I need to spend more time playing with this app. I'm sure there's a way to get it back to normal. But look at how these earthquakes are basically on opposite sides of the globe. See that? See the bars there sticking out? Okay. So this one here is our 7.4 Colombia. All right. And this one here is our newest 7.7 Indonesia. There it is. So these are antipodal quakes. And in fact, the 7.7 Indonesia is exactly opposite the location of the 7.5 and 7.2 that struck Venezuela. I presented on that right when it happened on the 24th of June. And I put out quite a few earthquake forecasts as a result of that, because that was a very significant earthquake. And when you get these really big, significant, high magnitude earthquakes, that really gives you an ability to forecast out other locations because of these connections that we see. So let me show you this clip. This is about a 2-minute clip from that live stream on the 24th. And in that live stream, I discussed the earthquake to Colombia, the possibility, because we see this connection between Venezuelan earthquakes and Colombian earthquakes, very close in time, and or just offset by, you know, a few weeks, a couple months. Geologic time, that's just a blink of the eye. So that's really quite notable. Let me show you a different web app here. Here we have our Supertunnel app, and let's go here and just type in Caracas, Venezuela. All right. Look at the location. Okay, that was where the earthquake hit, right? Magnitude 7.2, 7.5, June 24th of this year. Look at the direct antipode for this. It's exactly where we had our earthquake today, the magnitude 7.7. So if we go to General Santos City, this is the site of the magnitude 7.8 that struck the Philippines. All right, that was on the 7th of June, not that long ago. 7th of June, right there. Antipode is effectively opposite South America, just a little bit off of Venezuela, Colombia, okay, because it's a little higher in latitude. And then we had, of course, after that 7.8 is then when we had the Venezuela quake. Then we had Colombia. We're ignoring Mexico and Japan in this instance, all right? We're ignoring the 7.3 that struck Mexico and the quakes that have been hitting Japan. Japan's been having a big earthquake almost every single month now. So it's a possibility that we get another big earthquake in Japan just in the next like week or two, because that would be fitting that rhythm of it happening about every single month. So that's another forecast for you all. But then we had Venezuela, we had Colombia, and now it has bounced back to Indonesia, which is the direct antipode for Venezuela. So see how these antipodal quakes work? And they're all equivalent in magnitude, approximately. 7.8, Philippines, June 7th. 7.5, 7.2, Venezuela, 24th of June. Then you have the 7.4 that strikes Colombia 4 days ago on the 10th of August. And now we have the 7.7 Indonesia. So this is what's happening. This was a reverse thrust earthquake. We can look at it here. This is kind of the shaking intensity spread out. So really intense right in that area, but felt over a larger area, but just at weaker levels, okay? And if we go back here, we see the moment tensor plot, and we see that it was a reverse thrust earthquake. We have two different fault solutions, but the real key to look at is this third number, the rake. And if it's positive, that means it's a reverse thrust. And we see it's 104 and then 63 for the different solutions. So when it's close to 90, that means it's a perfect movement up. So at 104, that's 15 off of 90, and 63 there is 27 off of 90. So either way, both solutions have it mostly thrusting upward with a bit of sideways movement. All right. So it's mostly a reverse thrust, but a bit of strike slip component as well. So that is our moment tensor plot. And thankfully, it just wasn't in an area that was more populated. But there was some really intense shaking with this. There was a tsunami generated from this. Here we see our regional seismicity, our historic regional seismicity. So you can see just how active, of course, these locations are, right? This is the Ring of Fire. It's very, very active. So that is very significant. And to be expected, over time, it's to be expected. But this is happening directly after Colombia, Venezuela, and it's antipodal to them, which is why we talked about the possibility that this could be an issue, and it has happened. So now a question a lot of people have is, where is going to be next? Is there another location that may be next? Here we see some of the space weather that's occurred today. We had this big plasma filament launch off from the sun. See that? And then we had a blast over here. We'll check out a different video. It shows that a little better. Okay. But this big plasma filament launched out from effectively Earth center direct, but then swept over this way. And then we'll see the blast that follows. So let me show you that blast now, okay? Because what we can do is by looking at the sun, we can better understand electromagnetic dynamics within just the universe, right? Because it happens on more than just the sun. It also happens within interstellar space, the galaxy, within planets, on planets, all over, right? So here we see our 195 angstrom view. We'll see that launch off. And then check the coronal shock wave that blasted off right there. That was from a 4.1 C-class flare. There was just another solar flare that happened today, like just a couple hours ago as well. Haven't looked at that one yet. But basically what we're seeing with that filament, and this may be a better one to kind of to watch here. See that? That's a big loop, okay? So what you have is you have an electric circuit there. You have a flow of current through that loop. It's not just magnetic fields, it's also electric fields. Of course, you can't have a magnetic field without an electric field and vice versa. So you have a flow of current through that loop. Now, when you have multiple circuits near each other, one circuit having a change to it can cause changes to the other circuit. This can be through inductance and a whole bunch of different mechanisms. But basically, this circuit starts to expand out, destabilize, and again, it sweeps this direction, right? Look at this. It sweeps that direction. Then look at how we have that coronal shock wave immediately afterwards. Again, we'll go back here to really see that. But that filament goes out, the circuit destabilizes, it then pushes that direction, and then we have that shock wave right there. And there's more than just that too. So check this out. In addition to that, we had a bigger explosion occur on the far side. So we'll see our two explosions there, right? Going from more Earth facing towards the side and then to the far side. We're looking at the sun here from the side. This is our stereo A probe, so it's ahead of Earth's orbit. And so effectively Earth is over here. So these show that there's something coming towards us. And but look at how we have this chain reaction where one circuit then causes another area on the sun to destabilize, which then, it seems the two of them together in sequence then triggered this change over here. So let's look at that space weather model really quick. We have some space weather headed our way. This is going to be over the next few days. It looks like it's coming in around the 17th. So here we'll see the coronal mass ejection launch out, not that fast, but it is centered towards Earth, a little bit more towards the north, but we do see that we get hit right around the 17th as we're embedded within this high-speed stream. So we have that coming in. Now, why am I showing you in talking about the circuits and everything? First, I wanted to show you that because it's a very clear, obvious example. Like, it's a very obvious example of these electromagnetic dynamics that you can see playing out in real time. And that's why I like tracking what's happening with the sun and solar activity. And we know there's a connection between solar activity and what happens geophysically on the planet, geologically, etc. Volcanoes, earthquakes, weather, and more. We've talked about that for so long now. And we'll discuss it more. If you want to subscribe, stay up to date. You'll learn all this stuff with time. That's the best advice I have for you. If you find this interesting, then just make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the videos so they show up in your feed, or set notifications. Do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to do this, that's fine. God bless you, love you. But if you really find this stuff interesting, you want to learn, I educate as I go, right? I don't assume you know things, and I also go back and circle to the more basic concepts. So if you simply just watch the videos over time, you will pick up a lot of this information. I guarantee it. That is how it works. If you watch one video, you'll learn a little bit. If you watch 20 videos, you'll learn a lot. Consider it education on demand. So these circuits, though, when one breaks or changes, you can have then changes induced in another one. And so we're seeing that within the Earth as well. I think what we're seeing with these antipodal quakes and also the nearby quakes, right, is very clear evidence of that. Because here we have our quake for, or doublet for Venezuela, right, 7.2, 7.5. And look how just nearby, right, 6 weeks later, 7.4 Colombia. And there is a very rich history, historically, of Venezuela and Colombia having earthquakes very close together in time. Now, yeah, these places get earthquakes, but actually, you know, it's not like every 2 months we're getting magnitude 7s to slam Venezuela and Colombia. This is the biggest earthquake sequence to strike Venezuela since 1812. At least in terms of death and destruction, it's the biggest. You know, they had a 7.7 that was like off the coast a little bit, but this is the most significant earthquake to strike Venezuela since 1812. So we're talking a 200+ year cycle here, okay? So if you're, you know, when you're looking at like magnitude 4s and you're trying to draw connections to them, just forget about it. Because guys, magnitude 4s are happening literally every single second. Like, not every second, but you get the idea. They're too common. You have to look at the biggest and most significant earthquakes and then kind of work back from there. So, well, big and significant, and this is one of the biggest in Colombia's history as well. So the fact that they occurred there just 6 weeks apart is pretty crazy. Now, on both sides of that are earthquakes here in the Western Pacific. Well, I have the location here for the 7.7. I'm not sure I have the 7.8 in here. I can always add it. But I'll just freeball it right now because it is basically right there. And this is Philippines 060726. We're doing it live, folks. You're seeing behind the curtain. Right now, everything is kind of working, kind of not working in this live stream. But hoorah, we're doing it. Here we see the location for the 7.8 and the 7.7 close together. All right. So you have some maybe rock circuit destabilized. We know that these rock circuits exist. What is a rock circuit? Well, you have, of course, a whole bunch of geologic layers, minerals, and rocks under the surface. Okay. And eventually you get to the mantle where things are more malleable and fluid. And actually the electric currents are way stronger in the mantle. The closer you get to the surface, actually, the more resistive the crust becomes. But in general, what happens is if you place stress, here we have, we'll use this as a rock, okay? If you're placing stress upon this, like me pushing on this, is actually generating these little electric signals because you have a crystal lattice and there are little free electrons that are embedded within the crystal lattice, and mechanical stress, that strain, then causes some of the little electrons to pop out and generate a signal. So that's what happens with quartz crystals. And in fact, like almost all our technology runs off of the piezoelectric effect, which is what it's called. So that happens at scale, at depth as well. And so you have these rock circuits. And so traditional geology explains plate tectonics as, the plates are moving because of convection in the mantle, and there's this subduction and then spreading centers and all this. And yeah, that's great. They leave out the electromagnetic stuff though. In general, now it's starting to catch up through the work of people like Freeman Freund, and I guess through my efforts here on YouTube. and many other people, researchers, etc., doing amazing work, cutting edge geophysics. But obviously, we know that there is strain building upon certain areas. Like we have a subduction zone, right? And we have a transverse boundary in California, whatever. So as that strain continues to build, the stress accumulates, you're going to get stronger and stronger rock circuits, all right? And once you have a flow of current, because that's what you have, a circuit is a flow of current. You don't have a circuit if there's no way for it to fully connect, right? If you have just a wire and it's not touching the other side, right? You just have a wire like this. You could have, let's say, a battery at the bottom and take the wire and you're holding it like this. It's not a circuit yet because there's no flow of energy in between because the air is resistive. Now, if you ramp up the voltage enough, like that battery gets supercharged, you can arc discharge between the wires and complete that circuit. But it requires a huge amount of voltage to be pumped into it. The potential will have to be very high to be able to arc plasma discharge with the wire. But you got, a simple AA battery, again, the wire. The moment you bring it together, that circuit will get created. What will happen is it'll generate heat because it'll keep running and you could have the battery, melt down, whatever. So that's why you don't just simply do that because, eventually the energy is like this. So with rock circuits, because the ground is usually resistive, the circuit is of a very low amperage. The current is very low, but as the strain accumulates, the current is going to increase and increase. And as the current in one circuit increases, you are going to get induction in other circuits nearby. So currents, then also these rock circuits, they can get displaced because you actually have the physical shift occur, right? You actually have movement of the plates and faults and blocks and etc. So that also then, if you actually get that physical displacement, that also then alters these connections with circuits. So one model of understanding, we're going to look back in 50, 100 years, and this is going to be basic stuff that's going to not fully encapsulate everything that we then know. Just as we look at geology 100 years ago or any science 100 years, they're still bleeding you 100 years ago, right? So with leeches and everything. So we're going to look back and this is not going to be adequate. But for what we can do right now, there are rock circuits that exist here. There are rock circuits that exist here. There's larger rock circuits that connect them together. But a big change in this rock circuit, because you have the magnitude 7.8, is going to precipitate a change in this one. At the same time, it really does appear that there are also these larger rock circuits based off of mantle convection that go all the way across the Earth, because that is really the best explanation we have for these antipodal quakes. You actually have the seismic waves also propagating through the Earth itself, but there's a lot of attenuation by the time they get to the other side. And if we just stick with this purely like physical mechanism, it really doesn't seem to make sense. But if we invoke some of these electromagnetic dynamics, then it starts to seem a little bit more plausible. But we have the observational evidence of antipodal quakes. So we know there's something there, right? You go by observation and then you figure out how it works. Then you build a model of understanding. You don't build a model first just based off of your brainchild, because that could be a complete delusion. You go off of observations first. So we had the 7.8 strike the Philippines, then closely antipodal to that, we had the 7.2, 7.5, then we have Colombia follow afterwards. There was also the 7.3 here, and then closely antipodal to Colombia is the 7.7 that struck Indonesia, but directly antipodal to Venezuela is the earthquake that struck today. Direct antipode. So we're very clearly seeing these dynamics at play. What this means, with there being two quakes here and there being two quakes here, that could be it. That kind of completes the sequence. They're stronger in the Western Pacific with the 7.8 and 7.7. This is not as strong cumulatively as that is, but that's fine. These antipodal quakes don't need to be an exact they don't need to be exactly equivalent in total seismic energy release. they're generally close together, right? These aren't magnitude 5s. If these are magnitude 5s at this point, I would just be creating some fabrication for you, some fabricated story. Clearly, they're connected together in time, in magnitude, etc. But they don't need to be exactly equivalent. But you have 2 on both sides. Maybe that's it. We could, though, be now at the beginning of a continuous back and forth. That's what we had last year. Last year, we had the magnitude 8.8 that struck Kamchatka up here in this location. And then we would get an earthquake in the Drake Passage, which is roughly antipodal to Kamchatka. Not exactly, but roughly antipodal. And then we would get a big magnitude 7. Those are magnitude 7s, 7 plus earthquakes. Then we had, magnitude 7 aftershock here. And then a month later, it'd ping back to Drake Passage. And then it'd ping back to Kamchatka. And it did that multiple times. And it wasn't 2 here and then 1 there. It was very clear ping pong activity. There's other examples that we've looked at last year. And I could, dredge up out of the depths for you. But those are very clear examples. And we're seeing it right now. So we could get more antipodal activity. And because there is a deviation range of about 0 to 15%, it could then go to other locations. Really, Central America is looking very, very prime for a big earthquake. So we could see Central America be next to respond to this. Maybe Costa Rica, Panama, Nicaragua, all these locations are possible. We already did have the 7.3 up there in Mexico. So that's certainly possible. It could be further south, Ecuador, Peru. That could be a location. And then as it relates to this area, it could be further over into Papua New Guinea. It could be different parts of Indonesia. We had a bunch of earthquake activity here in Sulawesi, but it was magnitude 6 activity. We did also have a deep magnitude 7.1 that struck 600 kilometers down back in February, I believe on the 22nd, that preceded all of this. That was a very unusual quake. Never before we've seen that strong of an earthquake that deep in that location in the historic record. So that was bizarre. But we could start to see this maybe expand out a little bit. But clearly we're seeing changes to these circuits and how they're interconnected together. And so yeah, just as you get this earthquake activity to build and you start to get these global seismic bursts to really take off, that's in general not really a good sign, because it usually just creates more activity until it finally dies down. And this one has kind of been spread out up until this moment. You had a bunch of magnitude 6 activity in between these higher magnitude quakes. But now with the 7.4 and 7.7 back to back in 4 days with the total solar eclipse directly in the middle, this is starting to shape up to be maybe the next week is going to be pretty active. We'll see. Who knows? Now we did have this magnitude 5.2 that struck Spain. Let's check this out because this is interesting. It occurred, right just 2 days after the total solar eclipse sliced through to the north. And Spain gets earthquakes, but not that often. They get bigger. They can get big magnitude 7s. Spain has 3 eclipse paths over the next 18 months. Ready down 1, because we had the total solar eclipse on the 12th. We have another one crossing over. And actually, the next one crossing over hits this area on August 2nd of 2027. On August 2nd of this year, 2026, we had a magnitude 5.5 strike Egypt right near that eclipse path. Now we're seeing a 5.2 strike right near that eclipse path. So synchronicities, that's all I'm saying that is, the synchronicities. But here, this is right next to Granada. So this was felt by a big city in Spain. We can go here to our interactive map and let's put on our did you feel it responses, our 10-kilometer responses, and pretty strong shaking right there in Granada. So this is significant. 5.2 is nothing to sneeze at. The thing is it a foreshock to maybe magnitude 6 plus? 5% chance of that. Hopefully that's not the case. But look at the here is the history where they had a massive earthquake that was very, very deep in this location. So this area is known for these really high magnitude deep earthquakes. I think that was like 1924 or something like that. We're gonna have to do a search for that because that was really interesting. So this is almost now a little bit of an omen to have that 5.2 there amidst all this activity and amidst the total solar eclipse and the 3 eclipse paths for Spain. I mean, it's almost like me drawing the red lines on the wall a little bit, but I mean, it's kind of obvious to me at least. So let's go back to our latest earthquakes and let's search for Spain because that's a pretty crazy earthquake there. And I'll just go all the way back to 1800 for this, but I think it was early 1900s if I remember right, but we'll just go all the way back. And we can set that for magnitude 7 because it was a big boy. It's a real big boy. We'll actually set to 6 just to see some other activity that might be interesting. And there it is, 7.8. Yeah, nearly a megaquake, 7.8, stronger than what happened today. 626 kilometers down. What? That is insane. And then the 6.3 there, 2010. So that location specifically is very, very important geologically for the entire globe because to get these sort of really big, really deep earthquakes is very rare. You have Fiji, Samoa area, you have Sea of Okhotsk, which is near Kamchatka, you have this location, a few others, but in general, when you get these like near megaquake or megaquake deep focus earthquakes greater than 600 kilometers, you're talking about the deeper earth dynamics, well into the mantle. So I do find it interesting that we had a 5.2 today, the same day, just after the 7.7, right at the site of this historic magnitude 7.8 that struck the Strait of Gibraltar here in Spain, 626 kilometers down, 1954, and that is the site of the next eclipse path going over. Let's see if I can pull up that eclipse path for you. I think I can search it maybe and pull it up. Yeah, so here we go. This will do it. So here is the solar eclipse path. It's actually more than just this, but this is just the area that I showed. This was a post that I did. I created this for a post on X. But you see there, cut right through that area. And on the 2nd of August of this year, 2026, not only do we have this magnitude 5.5 in Egypt, USGS had it at a 5.0. The Egyptians later, I think, downgraded to 5.2. We also had this 4.7 there in Morocco. That was on the 1 year preversary of that eclipse, which is the longest total solar eclipse of the 21st century. So 6 minutes plus of totality at Luxor, and you won't have another eclipse as long until I believe it's 2117, something like that. So this is very clearly an important total solar eclipse, that perfect sun, moon, earth alignment. And now we're seeing some interesting activity near this eclipse path as part of this global seismic burst that's been happening. So worth mentioning, maybe not worth freaking out about or anything. I wouldn't ever encourage anyone to like freak out, but worth mentioning and worth watching. You know, the fact that it occurred, like that Egypt quake occurred on the 2nd of August, a year before. That's a synchronicity. That's the definition of a synchronicity. So you pay attention if you understand what a synchronicity is. So let's see if we have any updates here. I don't think so yet. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to go over, and then we'll look at some video from Indonesia, see if we have anything, is that people are starting to take this seriously, though maybe these news outlets could be a little bit more serious themselves. But you gotta love them. We had the New York Post discuss what happened in Colombia and relate it to my forecast that I issued for Colombia back on the 24th of June. So this is a news article that they published. You notice there, published on the day of the total solar eclipse. That's actually my Jupiter. Jupiter was on my moon for that, and it's crazy, whatever. Uh, but there are people starting to take notice now that, earthquake forecasting to some degree is possible. Still early stages, but we're not completely clueless. Also, Daily Mail here with a quote from me in there as well, discussing the magnitude 3.8 that struck the Hayward Fault yesterday. I did not make a video on that. I was thinking about doing it. And insider paper here discussing again the deadly Colombia earthquake, and there I am. So people are taking notice. I got an email from someone in China that said they're journalists in China, and I guess this story here has been going viral on Chinese social media. That's what they emailed me. They want to do an interview. So people are finally taking notice of this. That is good to know. But let's type in Indonesia earthquake and see what we get. Because I haven't looked at any of these videos yet. I basically got home and immediately got the live stream up. So there's water receding there. Mount Ibu, or Ibu, one of the two, with a 5-kilometer ash plume shortly after the magnitude 7.7 earthquake. So that is just to the north of this epicenter, fairly close by. Again, showing that earthquake volcano connection. Footage shows a local tsunami wave reaching the northern coast of Indonesia. Thankfully, the tsunami wasn't too big. Only one location with like about a 1-meter tsunami wave, according to the authorities, the Indonesian authorities. I'm not sure this video's legit or not, because that building is like collapsed. So I don't know what the deal is with that one. I mean, it's possible, but I'm not sure what city that would be. Here's another video. Yes, this is serious. If this is video of the event, there's no reason why it shouldn't be. Of course, we live in the age of AI now, but this was a serious event. Bridge is shaking there. Footage of shaking here, stuff falling into the pool. Here's the clip that I was trying to show you guys earlier. Just wasn't working. So I'll link that in the video description. But if you go to my X page at Stefan Burns Geo, you can watch that 2-minute clip where I discuss about the possibility of an earthquake striking that location in Indonesia or nearby after Venezuela because it's antipodal. 7.7 shaking from a classroom in Indonesia. Though I think this might be a repurposed video from the Philippines. It looks familiar. Maybe not. Hard to say. Looks like it's a cumulative video here. But that area is not super populated. So we are getting video though. There are some video here. But yeah, 7.7 can knock down buildings like no problem. As we have been seeing. So maybe we'll go to latest, see if anything else pops up here. Okay, this doesn't look good. Ooh. Yes, this is more the type of videos I'm looking for. Like you can clearly tell this is from the locals. Ooh. That's not good. Here's another one. Big crack in the street. That's kind of unusual. Some landslide triggered as a result of this. And there's aftershocks. So this area is not off the hook. There are still aftershocks rolling in. Magnitude 6. We're likely to get probably honestly a magnitude 6.5 to 6.8 aftershock from this. Could be in the next hours or days. We've only had a 6.1 unless something just popped off. Let's check it out again, our latest map here. Okay. Let's just go here. Latest earthquakes. Let's see what our absolute latest is with these aftershocks. 2 locations for the aftershocks too, which is kind of interesting, as you can see. But we're still at 6.1 for our highest. So we could be looking at a 6.5, 6.6, 6.7, 6.8. It's possible that it's just like a few magnitude 6s that are like 6.1, 6.2. Maybe there's like 3 or 4 of those. But generally, it's 1 magnitude less. So 7.7, 6.7. But you had a little bit of range. Probably in this location, anywhere here. That's where it'd be expected. It's not, the aftershock's not going to be like way over there. If there's an earthquake there, that's a different earthquake. That's probably related and triggered by this earthquake. But aftershock would be in this location there. So, yeah, big earthquake, and they're still updating these the color codes there. So, yellow pager, both with fatalities estimated and also economic losses. So the USGS estimate right now is 10 to 100 fatalities and economic losses of 10 to 100 million, most likely. Could be more, could be less. But some of the video that we saw was not good. As it knocked some of those buildings down in a flash. Like really in a flash. I don't think we have too many did you feel it. We do have one response from way over there, but these people aren't American. They're Indonesian, so they're not using USGS. And that's fine. Here we have the tectonic summary. Let's read through this. The August 14, 2026 magnitude 7.7 Flores Sea earthquake occurred off the northern coast of East Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia, as a result of reverse faulting at shallow depth. The earthquake is located in a seismically active area dominated by convergence between the Australian and Sunda plates. Focal mechanism solutions indicate that the rupture occurred on either a west striking fault dipping moderately to the north or an east striking fault dipping shallowly to the south. The location, depth, and preliminary focal mechanism solution for this earthquake indicate the event is likely the result of thrust faulting within the overriding Sunda plate. At the location of this earthquake, the Australian plate is moving towards the north with respect to the Sunda plate at approximately 69 millimeters per year. So that's 6.9 centimeters per year, or a little bit more than 2 inches per year. These two plates meet at the Sunda Trench, approximately 35 kilometers south of this earthquake. While commonly plotted as points on mapped, earthquakes of this size are more appropriately described as slip over a larger fault area. Reverse faulting events of the size of the earthquake today are typically about 90 by 45 kilometers in size. That's length by width. In this area, since 1950, there have been 37 other earthquakes of magnitude 6 or greater, including 5 of magnitude 7 and larger within 250 kilometers of this earthquake epicenter. In 1992, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake occurred just 63 kilometers southeast of this earthquake epicenter, and the 1992 earthquake and resulting tsunami destroyed tens of thousands of homes and resulted in at least 2,500 fatalities. So there is certainly a potential for this once the reports come in, for this to actually have been pretty bad. We simply don't know enough at this moment in time. But as they update this shake map, it's becoming more and more intense. Remember when I first showed you and it was like almost all blue? It didn't really make sense at the beginning of this live stream. Now it's definitely looking more normal. And there's big cities in Indonesia everywhere. That place is crazy. I've only been to Bali, but that country is wild. So So we're still getting reports in, and that very well explains, the slip was across this larger region there, clearly. So from here to there, probably that entire fault, it actually pushed like this, basically. But it was over this entire area. So that plot that they have showing the circle will get updated to be showing more of a line with time as they get more reports. We're still too early. But lots of people here in Sika and all throughout this island, little villages, communities, and more, they all got a huge shaker today. They all got a really big earthquake. And more very potentially are coming. Yeah, I'm going to try one more time with this earthquake forecast. I don't know why it's not working, but let's... My wife and her family live about 2 hours northwest of Mount Mayon in the Philippines. She told me they... Okay, so let me preface again. So back on the 24th of June, I issued a forecast for Indonesia as a result of the earthquakes that struck Venezuela. I have the clip for that. Let me show you that clip. And there's the live stream link is in the video description. It's a 2-minute clip, but we specifically discussed the potential for earthquakes to strike this location in Indonesia back 7 weeks ago. So check it out. My wife and her family live about 2 hours northwest of Mount Mayon in the Philippines. She told me they had a quake a couple days ago. What are the chances this stretches there? What are the counterpoints on the globe? Prayers for everyone. Yeah, let's look at the antipode for Venezuela. We can type in Caracas. And I think it's actually roughly the Philippines, because I looked earlier. No, it's Indonesia. So here we have Indonesia there. So basically what they're referencing, they've watched the channel clearly a few times, is that what we often see with high magnitude earthquakes is we get an earthquake that's roughly antipodal. It's not exactly on the opposite side. Usually there's about a 6 to 15% deviation. I was calculating the numbers based off of some really well-known antipodal earthquake last year. And the deviation ranged from 6 to 15%. So we could be seeing a big earthquake in this region in the near future. Now, I will point out is that we had an ultra deep earthquake about 600 kilometers deep that anomalously struck here, where there's never been an earthquake of this magnitude. A magnitude 7.1 struck right there on the 22nd of February. So that wasn't that long ago. And that would fit that definition. But there's about 4 months in between. Still, that's well within the time frame. And we've had tons of activity recently in the Philippines and Indonesia. We just had the 6.7 strike Indonesia Sulawesi. So you could consider this one the antipode to those. But we were starting clearly this back and forth. So we could be looking at Colombia. Colombia could be in the line of fire going forward because that's close to this antipode location for the Ring of Fire. We could be looking, we had that 6.1 in the Gulf. That was anomalous, very, very odd. We could be looking at more earthquakes around the Caribbean and maybe even further north into North America. So it's useful to look at all these things: space weather, antipodal dynamics, earthquake stress loading dynamics, right? We look at everything basically. Okay, so that's the clip right there. I'm glad it finally worked. I wish I could have shown you at the beginning of this live stream, but whatever, God chose differently. So, yeah, now the question really is, where's next? And I still stand by, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but we're going to, I think I'm going to do that in a different live stream. I don't think this is a good time. This live stream's already an hour in. I'm going to do a dedicated report on some research I've done for California. I'm going to talk more about those rock circuits and everything. I really just gave you a preview. I'm going to flesh it out a lot more, create some visuals and stuff. So, if you want to learn about that, then stay tuned, subscribe, all the things. But we are looking, if I just had to quickly go into it, California, just because of all the seismicity, and I'll explain more again with this future video, but because of all the global seismicity that's happening right now, California is looking very key and could very likely rupture. There's a lot of reasons why. The TLDR is that California, with this San Andreas transverse fault, this transform fault where they just slide past each other, seems to be a critical stress relief for the entire ring of fire. So bigger earthquakes occur in other locations like 9.5, you know, and 9.1 and whatever. But we often see with the big earthquakes in California that they occur right after a very notable big earthquake somewhere else. So there seems to be some reason that why California is like a stress relief, where it then does a magnitude 7 when there's some big magnitude 8 elsewhere. So I'll discuss that more, but because we've been having all this activity, that's why California is kind of in the firing line. I would say Central America, Mexico, we did have the 7.3 here, but Central America is not looking really good. Further south in South America is not really looking good if it spreads, right? We had 1, 2, and now we could maybe get something up here. Magnitude 7, probably close in magnitude. That's a concern. And future activity in this area, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, that's a concern just because, again, how active it's been. I know this is kind of a wide net now, but the Earth is obviously a lot bigger. So this is actually fairly narrow. And Japan, because there's been so much activity in Japan since November. It's been nearly a big earthquake every single month. So and Japan's the most active place seismically in the world. So if everywhere else is active, Japan is active too. And that's exactly what it's been. So I would not be surprised if in like 5 days time, or maybe like 2 weeks time, especially with the full moon coming up, I would not be surprised if there's like a big high magnitude 6 or magnitude 7 that strikes Japan north. Last one was in the south, like somewhere. I would not be surprised whatsoever. I think there's still plenty more activity for Japan going forward, unless everything that's happened is now done, bow wrapped, everything. And I don't think that's the case. And the thing is, if Japan had the magnitude 9.1 in 2011, they've had lots of magnitude 8s historically in the past, but that 9.1 is one of, if not the biggest earthquakes ever recorded across centuries. It was a huge earthquake. It's in the top 3 across like millennia. So let's say if there is now the energy of like a mid-magnitude 8 that needs to be released for Japan, Japan has 2 options. A, geologically, it can have that magnitude 8.5, let's say, or it can have like 20 magnitude 7s. And they're going to be across different ranges, but you're going to need 32 to 33 magnitude 7.5 earthquakes to be equivalent to the energy release of a magnitude 8.5. So we've been seeing tons of activity from Japan. If there is the energy inherent there for, let's say, a bigger 8.5, something like that, anywhere in that zone, and that's not going to rupture, then that would basically mean that we're just at the beginning of all these earthquakes to hit Japan that are magnitude 7 or so, in that 7 to 7.9 range, because it's going to need a lot of those to dissipate that energy. And maybe that's what happens. Maybe you get a magnitude 8.5. Maybe these magnitude 7s, there's not the potential of an 8.5 there. Maybe it's just a potential of a magnitude 8. And, we had a 7.6 and 7.2 and 7.1 and 6.8 and others. So, 7.4. So we're getting maybe close to that level of magnitude 8 cumulatively. So maybe that's it. That's why it's simply hard to know. But we're in a very active seismic phase, clearly, over the past few decades because of what's been happening. Magnitude 8.8 Kamchatka megaquake last year, historic. One of the strongest ever on record. The 9.1 2011, historic. One of the strongest ever on record. The magnitude 9 that struck in 2004, December, right? We're in a very active period right now. So that'd be my forecast. Basically, I think the locations that are showing activity now are the main areas, but even more so, a little bit spread out from perhaps these main centers. We could get some surprises. It's hard to say, but that's really where it's a concern. This is potentially a foreshock here, this 5.2. We'll have to keep a close eye on that site of the super deep magnitude 7.8 in 1954. So that's a shot across the bow right there. And someone asked a question earlier, is this 7.7 a foreshock? That is certainly possible, okay? Like with this earthquake swarm, this could be a foreshock to a mid-magnitude 8. That's possible. It's super possible. Now, is it a 80% chance? Well, it's going to be a 100% chance if it happens, of course, right? But statistically, it's about a 5% chance. So there's about a 5% chance right now that this is in fact not the big deal, but a foreshock to something even bigger and more devastating. And considering that this was a reverse thrust earthquake and it was shallow, if there was, let's say, a magnitude 8.5, it could be higher. But let's say it's a magnitude 8.5 reverse thrust earthquake in that location, that tsunami would be really bad news. So we hope that this is not a foreshock. We pray that this is not a foreshock, because if this is, then, I mean, yeah, the people on this island are going to experience devastating shaking. And for an 8.5, even some of these nearby islands, it's really going to be bad. There's some really big volcanoes all across this arc. There's Bali. Look at all these volcanoes. That's not good as it relates to the volcanism. But a tsunami being generated, that's where you really could see a ton of destruction. So we hope that is not a foreshock. Like, we really hope and pray. If you want something to pray for tonight, that's what you need to pray for. That's what you need to pray for. So let me see some of these super thanks that have come in. Jason, thank you. Yep, happy to help, happy to jump on, even with some of the issues in the live stream. Have there been any earthquakes on the antipode of California? Yeah, it's like in the Indian Ocean off the east coast of Africa. That's kind of the thing with these antipodal quakes, is that you're going to get a more clear connection with the quakes kind of pinging back and forth when they're both very obvious geologic zones, right? Because some places don't have like a clear, like for example here, look at the plate tectonics here. It's just all crazy and wild and twisted and whatever, right? The exact antipode for that is right here, which is all pretty crazy and twisted and wild as well. So there you have the potential. They're linked, and they both are also in these settings that can host that activity. Now we talked about the antipode for Kamchatka, right? Here's Kamchatka. This is a very strong subduction zone capable of magnitude 9s, right? Well, the antipode is more like, it's kind of like, what is it? Let's actually type it in. I don't remember if it's on the east or the west side. So let's type in Kamchatka. That should do it. Yeah, so it's further off there to the east. Go back to our map there. You see it lines up in this subduction zone. So these are also antipodal to each other. So you have very strong, clear subduction regimes that are opposite sides of the globe from one another. For California, though, the antipode is roughly here in this like mid-ocean ridge area. So it's not the same setting. And also California is not a subduction. It used to be, not anymore. So these antipodal quakes are, it seems to me, more important when it's similar geologic settings opposite one another with similar capabilities. But that doesn't mean that there's still not, potential back and forth. But that's something that I'm still researching into, and I'm not confident in giving you a commandment there. So, Julio, what is magnetic vortex technology? You're gonna have to do your own research on that. That's super off topic, but thank you for your super thanks. And yeah, thank you for the super thanks. Alex Harris with a super generous super sticker, $1.99, New Zealand cash. Thank you so much for that. Much love, namaste. And just wanted to show you that Emilio Ortiz Emilio here, who's from Colombia. He is holding a global gathering for prayer, healing, and action as a result of the earthquakes that struck his home country. He was there. He felt them. Thankfully, it didn't really affect him too much because he was further away from the epicenter. But I'll be participating in this. It's like a 90-minute like meditation that you can take part in on Zoom. So I recommend you guys, if you want to sign up, I'll link this post in the video description. But he also has the webpage here. So colombiaweholdyou.vercel.app, as you can tell, with dashes. But again, I'll link this in the video description. But this will be on Sunday. So the nice thing about this is when Colombia happened, I told you that I was going to do a donation, but I was waiting to hear back. He found 2 organizations that he really likes. So I'm going to put my donation towards one of those, and there's links if you want to also donate to help the relief efforts for Colombia. You can do that. Does Belize have any big quakes? Yeah, they're right at a very critical junction, as you can tell. Not only do you have the subduction zone, you have this boundary there cutting through for the Caribbean plate, and also they don't have anything outlined here for the plate boundary. But look at this. You know that is something, okay? Because that's clearly a very defined feature, trench, ridge, everything. So Belize is at the junction of that. So yeah, they have big quakes and big faults. That's what I was referencing earlier. Your super thanks. So thank you, Travel Lover for Life, for mentioning that. It was good to cover that possibility. Mother Crow, thank you so much. And is there still hope for young people or adults getting into meteorological, astronomical, or geologic field with AI? I think what you mean is like with AI now taking jobs in research or whatever. How do you stand out? I think there's always room for people that are heart-centered, they're imaginative, they're creative. AI is not, it doesn't have certain qualities that humans do. So yeah, if you have a passion for it, follow your passion. Thank you for the super thanks. Anna, thank you for the super thanks as well. I'm maybe not right about everything, but we're not wrong, 100% of the time. And Joseph, thank you for super thanks as well. Benzo, Jason, love from Ireland. God bless Ireland. Thank you so much. Is Puerto Rico due for a big earthquake? That's an interesting question. There's been intense earthquake swarming off the coast of Puerto Rico now for years. So yeah, I think so. I think it's just a matter of time before it happens, because these little earthquakes here are not really releasing that energy. I mean, they're releasing a lot of energy, but if there's like a magnitude 8 bottled up, but we don't really know why this is happening. We're still figuring it out. So it's certainly possible. It's a big area. You can get magnitude 8s there, no problem. So it's possible. We're about to get slammed by a tropical storm here in Hawaii on the Big Island. Could be quite bad. Could turn into a Category 1 hurricane. Could this earthquake have any energetic effects on the storm that's coming? Mahalo. No, I think that's too far afield to really affect it. But let's check out what you're talking about. Zoom.earth. And we'll see the live track for this. Looks like it's expected to be a Category 1 right before it slams in there. So this will be one of the biggest cyclone impacts in quite some time. Another tropical depression, Herman, forming right there to the east. But this is Lala. And yeah, we have a hurricane warning in effect for the Big Island, tropical storm watch for some of the other islands like Honolulu, and a tropical storm warning for Maui and some of the nearby islands there. So love and prayers to all of you in Hawaii, because yeah, you guys are expected to get some huge rainfall as a result of that, and then you get mudslides, lahars, flooding as a result. So this is expected to come in, looks like all Saturday. So tomorrow it's going to be a rough day. We're already having the edges hit, as you know. I mean, you're already seeing the weather change. So I wish you guys the best with that. And should I get my house ready for the Cascadia fault to rupture? Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? It could be 200 years from now. But when that magnitude 9 pops off and the megathrust quake occurs, it's not going to be good. You actually may not be able to get your house ready for that. You may need some special biodome construction to get through that one, because a magnitude 9 is going to be unlike anything that's ever been experienced by anyone living here right now. So I'm not sure how you prepare for that, honestly. A normal home, I don't think a normal home is going to make it, really, unless you're like further to the east. And if it's fairly shallow and close by, I mean, no one's ready for that. Let's just say that. That's my opinion. Mello, thank you for the super thanks. And Redacted, thank you for the super thanks as well. I do my best to help you all out with that. Yeah. So yeah, up to 25 inches of rain forecast in some parts of the Big Island. Whew. Yeah, it's a big deal. This cyclone coming in for Hawaii. Category 1, 75-mile-per-hour winds. First significant cyclone to hit Big Island in a while. They've had Kona lows recently, things like that. That's been a big deal, but direct hit. Really going to hit Hilo strong too. Look at that, the way it's coming in. South coast, east coast to south coast. But the rain dumped on the west side too, running down, right? It's one big mountain. That rain going down the west side, no one's escaping that, really. It's gonna be difficult for everybody. So I'm going to sign off now. Thank you all, everyone, for joining me today, for your support of this channel. Sorry about the difficulties with the live stream earlier. Don't ask me why. Some of these things were acting up, glitching, everything else. It happens. But much love and light to you all. I've been here with Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy. Big magnitude 7.7 having struck Indonesia today. More earthquakes are possible in the days and weeks ahead. Of course, that's going to happen, but we really right now are in a global seismic burst. That magnitude 7.7 could be a foreshock to something bigger, and we are seeing this antipodal activity now between Indonesia and the Philippines and Colombia and Venezuela. So there's now a possibility, it's already been happening, there's certainly a heightened possibility that that continues over the next few months. So I'll keep a close eye on all this. All this activity does not bode well for certain places around the globe, especially California, based on my research. I'll be back with an update on that soon. Have a great day. Please say some prayers for everyone in Indonesia, for the Hawaiians, anyone affected by these earthquakes, the Colombians, the Venezuelans, the Filipinos. It's been tremendous over the past few months. And so, you know, the more people can just say even like 10 seconds of, dear God, please help these people, you know, that amen. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just make your voice heard. That is going to be helpful. So thank you all so much. Have a great day. I'll see you all in the next video.